Welcome to For Your Amusement, a theme park podcast that aims to exhaustively evaluate the world's most popular theme park attractions to determine if they are world class. I'm Ryan Bergara.
I'm Byron Marin.
And for this episode's featured attraction, we angered the podcast gods with all our celebrating of Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room in Disneyland in Anaheim, California, and Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World, Orlando, Florida. And as always, go ahead and like and subscribe if you're watching on youtube.com/watcherpodcast, or subscribe and rate the podcast 5 stars if you're just listening. And hey, tell some folks, tell some friends, some family about the show. It'll help us keep this a show. But Byron, we finally are doing it. The Tiki Room. You got the nice little tropical shirt on.
Yeah, I had to show up for the classic.
And you put a little lei over your mic.
Okay, for context, the lei that I strung across this mic pole, it was originally around my neck, but this is one of those really cheap ones, and it is so itchy that I'm like, there's no way I could go the full episode, so I'm just going to do a little set decorating for you.
That makes sense. I'm wearing my my Trader Sam's shirt. It's very comfy shirt. But we love this attraction. Actually, Byron and I just got on this ride recently together, and just what a delight. It's a delightful attraction.
I don't know if it translates to being world class, if I'm being perfectly honest.
We'll see.
But, we'll see. That's why we have the test.
We will see. I have very fond memories of it. I don't know if my wife could say the same thing. She was with us the last time we did this attraction, and she was not as pleased.
Yeah, a lot of it might be baked in nostalgia.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads us to like, how old were you when you first?
Yeah, let's go into some first impressions here. I want to say as young as you possibly could be. I must have been like 3 years old. And this attraction always is a little near and dear to my heart because half my family lives in Hawaii. So we would visit Hawaii a lot to go visit them, and vice versa. They would come down. And whenever they would come down, we would obviously go to Disneyland. We would go with my grandma and my cousins and all that stuff. It was always fun for them to come to Disneyland and come to the Tiki Room, because even though, it is kind of like a goofy version of home, it still feels nice. I suppose there is a nostalgic feel to it. It just brought us together in a weird way. So it's got a warm place in my heart for sure. And I just remember loving these guys. I loved all my furry, feathered little guys.
They got their own distinct personalities.
They do, and they say things that I, as a kid, did not understand, but now as an adult, I think they're hilarious. I don't know how every adult that watches the show isn't hooting and hollering the entire time, because these guys are a riot.
When you're a pass holder and you go frequently, this, I think, becomes a ride that gets overlooked.
Yeah, falls by the wayside for sure.
However, like in my original trips, especially as like a toddler or being a little kid, there's only so much you could really do. And this is an experience that everyone can take in. My earliest memory of it would have been like my 6th birthday.
Yeah.
Not to say I didn't experience the show prior, but the first time it like actually hit me and I could remember it, it was my 6th birthday. It's the end of August, so it's always super hot. Yeah. So I do remember what felt like an eternity, even though like realistically it was probably only like 10 to 20 minutes waiting outside of the Tiki Room. But getting in there, sitting down, getting cozy, and you do, especially as a little kid, you feel very connected to these birds. They truly come to life.
They were my friends.
And the song is super catchy. As a kid, I remember singing it around. And you associate that.
It's not just catchy. It's a fucking banger.
It's a bop. For sure.
I love this song.
Just to start from first impression, I was surprised by my parents it was like the rare time as being a local to do like a little staycation back when you could like actually afford the hotels. They weren't like $500+ a night.
Yeah.
They told me that they were like taking me shopping or something on my birthday. I'm like, that's rude. And then got surprised with what is now the Pixar Pier or Pixar Place Hotel.
Yeah.
But prior to that, it was Paradise Pier Hotel, which at that time, it actually wasn't even Paradise Pier Hotel. I think it was called like Pacific or something like that. So they surprised me and took me there. So it was like a 2-day, 1-night stay. But the feeling of Tiki Room to me, ever since, it just associates with, I feel like I'm on vacation.
Yeah.
That was the first impression. I don't remember the beats of the story that much as a kid, but I remember the vibe.
Yeah.
And just that early feeling
immaculate vibes
that just kind of settles in with, wow, this is like, I'm on vacation. This is a Disney trip.
Dude, also, by the way, for those who don't know, Anaheim Hotel, across the street from Disneyland. That's where my family and I would stay. So I actually have more nostalgia connected to that hotel than the Disneyland hotel.
I've taken that out of your playbook
It's
now
really
because
good.
that's the place I'll go to. Or
Yeah.
at least the last couple times I've stayed near property, I've stayed at the Anaheim
It's
hotel
very nice.
because-
It's definitely more of a bargain, if you want to call anything in that area a bargain, than the Disneyland hotel. Actually, some of my most fond memories are of like being on my dad's shoulders as he carried me as I was asleep, because we would go till the park closed and he would just walk across the street from Disney, from across the Esplanade over to the Anaheim hotel. Anyways, this ride is really fantastic. I actually don't know how we do not have a little fake bird in here. We should have a fake bird in this little tiki room.
You have like a tiny little one. I don't know if that camera's going to catch it. Probably not.
It's
but
not big enough. We need to get
it's like a tiny
nice
little.
Oh, you do have a
hummingbird or
Bee
something.
Junkies hat.
Oh yeah, that's actually from Weird Wonderful World. We should take that out of there. Let's get that out of there. It'll be just disappear in the edit. That's really
This
funny.
isn't on theme.
We should put a bird up there or something like that. But anyways,
see if I can find a bird.
I think
It's okay.
we could probably buy one on Amazon. That's like cheap. I don't want to get like a taxidermy bird. Taxidermy freaks me out. No offense. It just
Well, as Walt Disney said back when they were creating this attraction, we don't do stuffed birds, John Hench.
yeah, exactly. Let's go ahead and toss to some history then, Byron.
Let's go for
But
it.
before we do that, let's thank our sponsor.
Now, we absolutely love the tropical vibes of the Enchanted Tiki Room, and when you're on the island, you can easily fight off the hot, humid temperatures with a safari swizzle if you're feeling dangerous, perhaps a murky mojito. But what do you do when those temps are in your bedroom? Well, thankfully, if you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made bed sheets. Inspired by NASA, Miracle Made uses silver-infused fabrics and makes temperature-regulating bedding so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. And did you know that traditional bed sheets can harbor more bacteria than a toilet seat? It can lead to acne, allergies, and stuffy noses, and it's just gross. Miracle Made offers a whole line of self-cleaning antibacterial bedding such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent up to 99.7% of bacteria growth and require up to 3 times less laundry. Miracle sheets are also luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands and feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. So quit throwing away all those precious hours in bed and go to trymiracle.com/FYA to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code FYA at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. That's going to make you feel like you're on an island. I'm going to tell you that. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/FYA and use the code FYA to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/FYA to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. Now back to the show.
And we're back. All right, let's get into some history.
Once upon a time, most likely in the 1950s, there was a New Orleans antique shop where inside a traveler by the name of Walt Disney would stumble upon a small mechanical bird situated inside a gilded cage. He immediately began thinking of ways the mechanism could be improved upon and began to wonder if his team of Imagineers back in California could bring characters and animals to life in a way that had never been done before. During the late 1950s and early 1960s, Disneyland was constantly receiving creative and structural enhancements. Ideas were flying left and right, many of which would never come to life. But during this exciting phase at Imagineering, Adventureland was in the midst of receiving a major facelift. And with that, Walt expressed interest in developing a Polynesian-themed restaurant near the entrance of Adventureland, a location which would allow the new structure to share kitchen space with the likes of the pre-existing Plaza Pavilion restaurant on the corner of Main Street, in addition to the Tahitian Terrace. So this development stage, and luckily we've had interviews, or we haven't held interviews, but there are interviews out there with John Hench when he was alive at the time, and Raleigh Crump, who was alive at the time, where they were talking with Walt and having meetings over this potential restaurant that Walt wanted to have near the entrance of Adventureland. And John Hench shows him the concept art and Walt notices these birds that are positioned above where the people are eating.
Yeah.
And the big concern Walt has is, well, like these birds are going to poop in the food or like all over the guests and stuff like that. And John Hench has to explain to him, oh, no, these are mechanical birds. They're not going to be real. Now, this is where the story gets a little muddy for me.
Yeah.
Because we have one story, and I'm not saying they both didn't happen. I'm sure they both happened.
This
but
happens
I'm wondering,
a lot in Disney history.
But I'm wondering what came first. Walt walking into the antique shop and bringing back the bird, or John Hench explaining to him? Because if Walt was already familiar with mechanical birds, I feel like this back and forth process of getting him on board with a mechanical bird would have been very short-lived. To be like, no, Walt, remember that bird you brought us once upon a time? Like that's where they're going to go. Oh, got it. Done. Yeah. Not explaining, oh, no, we're going to have these mechanical birds. So I'm wondering, like, chicken before the egg, or like how accurate.
Well, according to an interview from Imagineer Walt Rogers, he said that the idea for the attraction, quote, kind of started with Walt and this little mechanical bird in a cage that he had. Walt gave it to me and asked me to look inside it, end quote. And then Disney archivist Dave Smith said that Walt found that bird on a trip to New Orleans with his wife, and that was also the impetus for the Tiki Room. But
when did it happen?
But it makes sense, because like it doesn't make sense with this John Hench thing where he's like, oh no, those birds are going to be mechanical. Walt would have already had told John Hench and the Imagineers to look into a mechanical bird.
Or at least would have been obsessed or familiar with it enough to be like, got it. Okay, move. That's what we're okay.
Maybe they both happen concurrently, and just the stories are, because
both John Hench and Raleigh Crump have both said the same story.
So I don't know,
but you know,
the thing to gather from that, by the way, is sure, whatever happened, how did it start? That's probably actually more important. But as it pertains to me, the thing to gather from that is that the Tiki Room was almost a dinner show. And
yes.
I get it. They didn't make it a dinner show because Walt realized the capacity would be lessened by that. Fewer people would be able to see this attraction if it was a dinner show. However, and I get that. I think that is relevant for most of this ride's lifetime. However, nowadays, this ride is barely packing like 10% of capacity into that building.
That's a good point. I didn't think about like pushing it into today, because back like with those meetings that had with like John Hench, Raleigh, a lot of legendary Imagineers. I think Mark Davis was even involved with this one. A lot of legendary Imagineers came together during this era.
You're telling me
we're working. But I think another big issue with this is what I've also heard is once they were like nearing completion, because they had this interior set up in Burbank.
Yeah.
And we're running tests with like, patrons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where I think John Hench they wanted like hour-long blocks, and then like say like 15 minutes or so before the end, like around the dessert phase, the birds would come to life.
Yeah.
And supposedly Walt Disney was so impressed with this show that he's like, people are never going to leave here. They're just going to want to stay. We won't be able to move people in and out in those 1 hour time windows. And the show is so good that it should just stand alone. And then, like you said, like the capacity and stuff was another factor.
No, he's right though. He was right. But I think in today's modern era where people are barely going to see this show, unrightfully so, by the way, they should, you're telling me you wouldn't pay to have dinner in the Tiki Room?
I mean,
this should be a dinner show now. I mean, that's probably kind of like a blasphemous thing to say, but I actually think that if they made this into just a restaurant, like if they closed it down, kept the attraction entirely the same, but then put dinner setups around it, and then had the original vision of having it come during the dessert phase, that would be so good.
If the food slaps, I'm on board with it.
Even if it didn't, like, what
essentially you're getting an experience that you have to pay like $50 or $60 for, and like struggle to get a reservation for.
Yeah, but even like look at like the Skipper's Canteen over in Magic Kingdom. That's like a Jungle Cruise kind of Adventureland-ish themed restaurant. If the food was that, but then it also happened to have this dinner show, which is the Tiki Room, you get to combine a ride that you've always experienced as a ride with dinner. Come on now, come on.
But then then you have to eat there, though.
I feel like we should put up the meme right now of Woody saying, hold up, let him cook. I think I'm cooking right now. I think I'm cooking.
It's a fair question to ask. I'm intrigued.
Let us know in the comments. Would you go to a Tiki Room
selfishly
dining show?
That means I would have to pay, as an annual pass holder that goes more frequently, I wouldn't have the easy, convenient step into the Tiki Room.
Oh, I guess, yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, because if
Like, is how like
No, because then you would only be able to see the Tiki Room show if you paid for dinner there. I guess that would be unfortunate. What if it was like from like 4 p.m. on before that? You could see the show normally,
and then it turns into a nighttime. And then it
closes at night.
That would actually make sense too, because usually one of the most beneficial times to experience the Tiki Room is when it's like hot and crowded.
Yes.
So when the temperature's up, you grab your Dole Whip.
I think the thing is, I love themed restaurants so much. I've talked about this in other podcasts, and it's like one of my favorite things in the world. Like, that's why I like something as goofy as Rainforest Cafe.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So like, if the prices were like even like Rainforest Cafe or less, and then you get the Tiki Room, that's like the ultimate themed restaurant. That's like a state of the art, and hopefully, if we score it right, world-class attraction.
Oh boy, you're
with some
gonna
dinner.
shoehorn this.
I'm not going to shoehorn it.
Okay. Well, anyways, obviously, this mechanical bird idea.
Yes.
This leads to the creation of what Walt Disney dubbed as the first audio animatronic.
Audio animatronics?
Right, audio animatronics.
Yes.
Now, they had gotten animals to move in the past with Jungle Cruise. However, that was like a very simple like lever mechanism that could only do one simple thing over and over. They had to hide the animals like far in the distance so they wouldn't be scrutinized or break the illusion. Yeah. So this really was a game changer. And as
it synced them to actually make them sing and talk.
Yeah. And they're like recorded to tape. As Walt Disney put it, everything is pre-programmed on tape, the birds' movements, lighting effects, and sound. We turn on the tape and the birds do their stuff. At the end, the tape automatically rewinds itself and starts all over again.
This kind of reminds me of like, to theme park nerds, this is probably what it felt like when the advent of the talkies came into movies. When silent movies started to have, actual like words and stuff attached to them. There's a scene in Singing in the Rain, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Classic.
Where people were at a dinner party and they unveiled the technology for the first time of what a talkie would look like. And I remember in that scene, the patrons at the party start screaming at the screen like, hey, who's behind that screen? Come back from behind that screen. Like, that's obviously not real. I feel like I wish I could have been in the room where the first showing of the Tiki Room, there were probably people screaming at these birds, being like, what's going on?
Like if they have like the test guests that are about to eat their like dinner up in Burbank, dude. And all of a sudden just, my siesta or whatever. Like,
yeah, dude. Yeah.
What the fuck?
If I'm in the middle of like chowing down on a Dole Whip and I don't know these birds are going to come to life and it goes, oh, my siestas are getting shorter, I would be like, a witch! There's a witch in this room. That bird just came to life.
And then that's when Walt Disney decided, look, this is gonna be a show. It's too damn good.
Yeah, it's I feel like people in the back in the day in the '63 when this opened were losing their fucking minds.
Yeah, no, totally a game changer. Which takes us to June 23rd of 1963. Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room opens at Disneyland, in which guests had to pay an additional admission fee of 75 cents to experience the sensation of being serenaded by these highly innovative birds, with a theme song written by none other than the Sherman Brothers. The attraction was so popular during its opening summer that large crowds enamored by the talking Barker bird situated at the entrance would pile up to the extent of blocking the entire entrance to Adventureland, prior to the bird being removed for that aforementioned reason. It's also important to note that this attraction...
I didn't realize that's why it was moved. That's really funny.
Yeah.
It's causing a traffic jam.
Yeah.
Because of what I was saying.
Because it's right there at the entrance to Adventureland. So it blocks... It blocked that entire entrance because people that kind of wanted to get a little sneak peek for free.
Yeah.
And once again, first audio animatronics, they're all standing around like, oh my God.
What do you think the percentage of adults were that saw that talking bird that thought it was actually real?
They just threw something at it.
5%, 10%. It's got to be not zero. I bet you it's not zero.
I mean,
there are people who thought there was a sorcerer.
Probably several feet away. Yeah.
That's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Walt Disney taught that bird how to talk. Mm-hmm. I believe it.
And there may be a fun fact about that Barker bird later that you may have, so I could save that. But it's also important to note that this attraction was originally sponsored by United Airlines. Could you take a crack at why this would make a lot of sense?
My guess is because when the Tiki Room was made, this was not too long after when Hawaii became an official U.S. state.
Nailed it.
Yeah, so they were probably trying to get folks to travel to Hawaii.
Yep.
And Walt also was very interested in Hawaiian culture, which I also think contributed to the creation of this
a lot
ride.
of hype in general, too.
I mean, it was so hyped. My family traveled from Japan and landed in Hawaii, and they were like, why the fuck would we leave this place? Yeah. And they just stayed there.
And obviously, like United Airlines was one of the the big airlines taking people out there at the
That's
time.
right.
So it was it made a lot of sense. October 1st, 1971 came the opening of Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom, and due to the continued success of the Enchanted Tiki Room over at Disneyland, it only made sense that this brand new Disney park would open their very own version of the attraction. However, it would go by the name Tropical Serenade. April 15th, 1983 would bring Tokyo Disneyland, and with that opening would come their new own copy of Enchanted Tiki Room.
Nice.
Now, although the original iteration of this attraction would remain, for the most part, true to its original form, the same cannot be said for the Walt Disney World and Tokyo Disneyland versions. In 1999, Tokyo and Magic Kingdom would receive an update to the classic show. For Tokyo Disneyland, they would get the Enchanted Tiki Room Get the Fever, which was a Las Vegas lounge-inspired take on the show. And
Was there an Elvis?
No, I
Was
think
there
it was.
a little
I think it was
bird
more
dressed like
just
Elvis?
there
Was
was a
there?
little stitch. No,
There was no bird dressed like Elvis?
I don't believe so.
That's a
I
shame.
think it was more like the style of how the show was presented, as opposed to Viva Las Vegas, like
Yeah.
none of that kind of stuff.
That's
But also, to the disapproval of many, Disney World would receive the Enchanted Tiki Room under new management.
nice.
Do you know a lot about this one?
I do, and I have it's in my fun facts, so I'll reserve.
Let's leave it then. In July of 2008, Tokyo Disneyland would transform their version once again into the Enchanted Tiki Room. Stitch presents Aloha I Como Mai,
And
which is obviously like a Lilo and Stitch
It's a Lilo and Stitch
inspired. I've heard that one's much better received.
but
than
that's
what
also
under
like a
new
completely
management.
different show, right?
Very different. I think there's a lot of elements that keep it in the same spirit of Tiki Room, except like Stitch throughout the show is kind of
Being
browsing
Stitch.
around. You see signs of Stitch being there.
Ooh, pineapple.
Yeah, that's good.
Just coming in.
And at the end, I think he like pops up and plays some guitar and stuff. It does seem really cute. I did watch a show of it online, and you could hear a lot of kids like actually when they're walking out saying "Bye Stitch, bye Stitch." So,
Really good.
and also Lilo and Stitch is a very popular film in Japan. So
It makes sense. Japanese culture has kind of filtered into Hawaii. There's a lot of Japanese folk over in Hawaii. Obviously all my family's Japanese,
Yeah.
but it makes sense to me. I actually did not even include the Tokyo Disneyland version in the opening of the show because it is essentially a different show now.
yeah,
So, but there is technically, I guess, a variant, if we're going to talk like Loki, of the Tiki Room over in Tokyo Disney.
In 2011, a small fire inside Magic Kingdom's Tiki Room would force the under new management version to close, reopening in its original form as Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room, and perhaps marking the first time in theme park history in which a fire evoked an immediate feeling of satisfaction amongst park fans.
Also, for anybody who watched the World of Color podcast for this for Your Amusement, we did make a little reference to Tiki Room under new management because we basically just slapped the For Your Amusement logo over the Pod Watcher logo, which is where that podcast is recorded. That's exactly what they did for the Tiki Room.
It was really rude.
They just slapped over under new management over the Tiki Room sign, which it was just salt in the wound.
And back over in Disneyland, California, the original iteration continues to entertain guests to this very day, which is still savoring a sweet and fruitful partnership with its current sponsor, Dole, who has
Nice.
been the sponsor since 1976. I wonder why.
Yeah. Also, it's it just came up on its 60th anniversary. Last year.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think it was last year.
Yeah, I actually. Speaking of why, just to add some oomph behind the what I said earlier, in that not a lot of people get on this ride, or not this ride, but this attraction as much anymore. I watched a POV video of the 60th anniversary, the day that was the 60th anniversary for the Tiki Room.
Who the hell was going to know it was the 60th
First off,
anniversary?
There it is right there. No, they didn't market it really.
No.
And if they did,
Shame.
they didn't go hard. And secondly, there was probably 15 people in that theater in this POV video. And I was like, they should turn this back into the dinner show.
Yeah, that's fair.
Keep it open during the day, turn it into the dinner show at like 5 p.m. onward.
I mean, to your point, I got to say, I went for my mom's birthday to Disneyland a week ago,
yeah.
and it was really hot. It was really crowded. Middle of the day. It was about half capacity in that theater.
That's crazy, dude. It's a shame. It's a damn shame. People
Yeah.
need to see more of these funny birds.
So, can you guess what the all-time average wait time
Oh, it's got to be
this is?
5 minutes or 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. So here's and what I have
we're
posted,
factoring all the way back to 63, but throwdata.com does not have that data. So
let's say the show is 14, 15 minutes long. Like if you include like the loading time and stuff like that.
yeah.
If you walked up to this attraction, they have the door open, they're ushering you in. Oh my God, I could just walk in and watch this show.
Yeah.
Let's say that's 0 minutes.
Yeah.
If you show up and you're like, oh my gosh, and they shut the door in your face and they're like, you're waiting for the next one, it's going to be probably a good, say, 15 or so minutes.
Yeah.
So your all-time average wait time is right in the middle.
10 minutes.
So it is posted at 6 minutes for Disneyland, 7 minutes for Magic Kingdom.
Ah, damn, my first guess was closer.
Because the actual show time is more closer to, I'd say, a little under 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah, I have a different time for my fun facts, but we'll see. Anyways, let's move on to some fun facts. But before we do that, let's thank our sponsors. And we're back. It's time for some fun facts. The show is approximately 15 minutes and 36 seconds long. So that must include some sort of load time there. Also, this is a fun fact that's later, but I'll just say it now. From the moment that people sit down, the cast member presses a button and it starts the show in 18 seconds exactly. And that's usually when they do like, hey, wake up. Oh, everyone help me wake up all the birds kind of thing.
All right, everyone, I'm going to need your help in waking up Jose. So on the count of 3, we're going to say, wake up, Jose. Ready?
Wake up,
1, 2, 3. Wake up, Jose.
But yeah, it's an 18-second thing, so sometimes they time it up perfectly. The show is 15 minutes, 36 seconds long, approximately, with an estimated show capacity of 230 guests per show. But honestly, I also saw, quote, more than 100 guests per show on a more reputable site. It's hard to say. I guess it's an imperfect science because they're not
seats. They're technically long benches.
They're long benches. So I guess.
So if you have like, let's say 200 little like toddlers,
yeah,
then you're going to fit a lot more people.
How many tables do you think you could fit in there though for a dinner show?
Oh God.
Like if you had like maybe 3 round tables, you could probably fit 3 round tables in there.
Yeah.
Like
I do hear that
4 and 1 in each corner.
I bet you could still find a way to get like 150 or so in there.
For a dinner show?
Yeah.
If you had like long tables, it could be an intimate show. I don't know.
Which, funny enough, that it has bathrooms.
Yeah.
The Tiki Room has bathrooms.
It's
because it's the only attraction that had, because they were building it with it being a restaurant in mind. The center of the Tiki Room was supposed to be like a coffee or like basically like a grab and go section. It's like grab your food or drinks or stuff like that.
It's my solution to how to revive that attraction. And hell, you could do it just on weekends or something if you wanted.
You could put it under new management, Ryan.
Yeah, that's true. I could be the guy that puts it under new management and everyone will want me to catch on fire. The show cost was also hard to pin down, but in the 1967 opening of the Disney World version, they received a $3 million sponsorship from the Florida citrus growers to build the attraction, which would be about $28.2 million today. So I would assume it's probably somewhere around there to build this bad boy, which feels cheap. Yeah. Like when you think about how advanced this ride or this attraction was back in the day. In this one small Tiki Room, there's over 225 animatronic characters. That has to be the most animatronics per square footage in the world.
I don't have no proof of the contrary, so.
APSF? That's got to be the highest APSF in the world, right? Animatronics per square foot? It has to be. Like, how big is that room? It's not that big. 225 little robots in there? That's crazy. If D-Day happened in the Terminator universe, this is the last room you'd want to be in. 225 like evil birds just
shooting laser beams out,
trying to peck your eyeballs out. The totem pole characters outside the show building, they actually come to life. Most of you know this, but they do it one at a time, and they have different spiels. They're all very, very fun, and I like these guys a lot.
I am Maui.
My name is Maui. Natives call me the Mighty One. I tamed the playful sun and gave my people time.
Yeah, dude, it's good. I'm going to get into some of them later, but in the good and the bad, but I can't wait.
Do you know who designed them?
No.
Raleigh Crump.
Of course he did. Rest his soul.
I think he did nearly all of them or all of them outside.
God, what a guy. They're very funny. If you somehow haven't heard of Dole Whip, the Disneyland version of the Tiki Room is one of the places you can mobile order it. It's absolutely delightful. You just sit there, you wait for the show to let you in.
Yeah, they allow you to eat inside the show.
They do. They didn't do that.
There's a period of time that due to the mask pandemic purposes, they, at the very least for Magic Kingdom.
Well, in Magic Kingdom, you weren't even allowed to eat or drink in there until 2016.
That's wild.
Which is crazy. And then they realized, hey, does everyone like eating Dole Whip while looking at funny birds? Then maybe we should do that.
I'm sure Dole was like, hey, what the fuck?
Yeah, dude. Well, they didn't sponsor it over there in Magic
No, they
Kingdom,
did
right?
not, no.
Anyways, this was the first attraction in the world, as you mentioned, to use audio animatronics and was pioneered by Walt and the Imagineers. But also equally exciting, this was the first attraction in Disneyland to have air conditioning.
Do you know why?
I do know why. You would think, oh, is it for the comfort of the guests? No, no, no. Walt, ever the businessman, was making sure that the birds did not overheat.
Yeah, it's like I guess what?
Got to make sure they sing.
Are they computer or like whatever? Yeah, whatever that whole system is, you got to keep it cool.
You got to keep it real cool. So everyone's like, wow, thanks, Walt. And he's like, not for you. It's for my little birdies.
Just be happy we gave you drinking fountains.
That's right. The Sherman Brothers wrote the iconic Tiki Room song, which you mentioned, and Robert Hargraves and Stanley J. Damerel and Tolchard Evans, they wrote the song Let's All Sing Like the Birdies Sing, which is a delightful song as well.
All sing like the birdies sing.
It's very good. I feel like that's a tweet that I would want to make on Twitter, and I would think it would do well, and it wouldn't, because it would be a reference to the Tiki Room, which nobody knows anymore. But
not
they do
as good
say
as your revived restaurant proposal.
the restaurant proposal is really good.
Oh, by the way, actually, fuck, what were we talking about?
We're talking about Let's All Sing Like the Birdies Sing. And
the Sherman Brothers.
Yeah.
The Tiki Room.
Yeah.
They weren't set on a name for the attraction until the Sherman Brothers wrote that.
That makes sense. It's so good. God, could you imagine, like, if like you're in a meeting, you're Walt, and you're like, all right, Sherman Brothers, is that how you address them? Let me see what you got for this new bird show I have. And they're like, all right, we got a couple songs. We're just going to play you one. And they press play on their laptop, which they had back then. And it's the Tiki Room. If I'm Walt, I'm pissing my pants immediately. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Unless they just imagine if they just handed him the lyrics.
Yeah.
In the Tiki.
Well, on paper, it doesn't look good.
It
doesn't look good on paper.
No, but their melodies, it works.
This is probably the same, like, if whenever the executives at Hot Pocket got Hot Pocket lyrics, it's just them saying Hot Pocket.
You can't have these like really complicated lyrics. You have to have like just strong melodies with the very catchy.
Exactly. Also, one of my favorite parts about Let's All Sing Like the Birdies Sing, it has the macaw hosts imitate and mimic famous 60s crooners. The first one is Bing Crosby, and then Louis Armstrong or Louis Armstrong.
Yeah. A fun fact for me, I don't know if this is like a Mandela effect or if I'm just slow. But growing up, I always thought that the lyric was all the birds sing words and the flowers bloom, not all the birds sing words and the flowers croon.
Yeah.
I always thought it was bloom.
I did think that for a while too. I mean, they both make sense.
Yeah.
But flowers croon is so much funnier.
Yeah.
I love it.
Again, it is a legitimate style of singing, so that's kind of fun.
Very Tim Robinson. Next fact here. In the early years of the show, the four main birdies, Jose, Michael, Pierre, and Fritz, all had feathers that matched the colors of their nationalities.
That's right.
For instance, Jose was red, white, and green, matching the Mexican flag, and the rest followed suit. I'm guessing this was changed because it feels not great by today's standards. But they were trying to make them look like the flags. Look, they were just focused on making birds back then, so let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting. When it first opened in Disneyland, guests were charged an extra 75 cents, aka $7.70 by today's standards, just to see this show, in addition to the admission. Like, could you imagine today walking into the Tiki Room and they go, hold on, buddy, $7.70.
Which is crazy because to put that in perspective, at the same time, the Matterhorn bobsleds, which would open that opened a few years prior, 1959.
Yeah.
The first like tubular steel roller coaster.
First e-tickets.
50 cents.
Yeah.
In that booklet. But this was sold separately. You couldn't get Tiki Room in the ticket booklet. You had to go pay a separate admission. And I believe that was because I think that's actually true. The Walt Disney Company
I know where you're going.
owned Disneyland.
This is a fact.
Okay,
too.
good. So it is true.
I mean, it's a fun fact. I don't know how verified it is, but
But supposedly the Walt Disney Company owns Disneyland. However, the Tiki Room specifically, the Tiki Room in particular, is owned by Wed Enterprises.
why WED, which is, if you didn't know, that's the name originally for Walt Disney Imagineering. It became Imagineering, but this was Walt's side company where he would develop tech for the park, because the park wasn't always like in the same plans as the Disney Corporation. So technically, Walt fronted the money for the Tiki Room and owned the Tiki Room, and then Tiki Room and WED eventually got rolled into the Disney Corporation. So that does make sense that it would be a separately charged attraction.
And then he's sitting across the dinner table from Roy, like, about that Tiki Room, huh?
Yeah, that's right. Bringing in 75 cents.
Blocking all of the Adventureland entrance.
That's crazy. What that weird thing you thought that wouldn't do well? I guess it's really doing well, huh? I think the 75 cents too. It goes back to what I was saying before. No one had seen an audio animatronic before. They probably thought these birds were real.
Now, speaking of that Barker bird outside,
Yeah.
do you happen to have the little Easter egg from that bird in your fun facts?
I don't. What is that?
So the Barker bird was known for having this little cane and top hat.
Yeah.
And you could actually find an homage to that in the new at Disneyland, in that recently constructed that tropical hideaway section.
Yeah.
They have an animatronic bird out there. It's a female bird. It's a different bird. It's not the Barker bird.
Yeah.
But next to her, you could find that little top hat and cane.
Oh, that's fun. I like that. That's a good nod. In 1998, like you mentioned, due to lack of attendance for the attraction, Disney World's Tiki Room was transformed into Tiki Room under new management. The show saw Aladdin's Iago, I think that's how you pronounce his name, and Lion King Zazu as the new hosts, and new music was also introduced. Some folks really hated these guys, and some folks were me, and a lot of people. And if you hated it, you're in luck, because as Byron mentioned, in 2011, Iago caught fire. And in my imagination, he exploded violently as well.
Which is really funny considering I think in the actual show, he comes back at the end and it looks like he did catch on fire. Like prior to the actual fire happening, he like was charred and had like bandages and stuff on him, like smoke flying out.
It's
foreshadowing, perhaps.
Perhaps, but he did make other animatronics catch on fire as well. But in the end, it did make them reevaluate, and the Tiki Room, as it was supposed to be.
Well, the sprinklers went off.
Yeah,
and that's what so they waterlogged these animatronics.
It's pretty rough. But you know what? We got the Tiki Room back. So, you got to crack a few eggs to make an omelet, I always say. And in the end, it seems like God was not a fan of the new management either. So
no.
He was like, fuck this.
And apparently not a fan of the original title for the Disney World version because
That's right.
it got changed to the Enchanted Tiki Room.
Here's a real fun one. Thurl Ravenscroft is the voice of Fritz, but he's also the voice of who, Byron? Do you know?
Does the other character also have a German accent?
He doesn't, but Thurl Ravenscroft also voices the large tree that's outside. Tangaroa.
Oh, gosh. I don't know.
He's the voice that sings the classic Christmas song, You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, which is incredible.
I would have never got that, but now that you've said it, that makes so much sense.
It's real good. The tree makes more sense than Fritz. The Q show in Disney World had two birds voiced by the late Phil Hartman and Don Rickles, and they were supposedly agents of the new show, and they were hilariously named William, and then the other one was named Morris, which is undoubtedly a reference to William Morris Endeavor, the famous Hollywood agency. To create the storm effect, water simply falls between two panes of glass, but is incredibly effective. And the singular stream of water during the Glee Club sequence is just a clear tube that is hidden by the water that falls from the top of it, making it seem like a perfect gravity-defying stream. That's it for my fun facts. Let's go ahead and move on to the good and the bad, but before we do that, let's once again thank our sponsors. And we are back. It's time for the good and the bad for this classic attraction. Let's start with the good. This ride has elite atmosphere surrounding it in the Disneyland version. It's right near the entrance of Adventureland, perfectly placed in a little nook tucked away. You got the tiki torches. You got the Adventureland music loop, which is the best loop in the entire park, in my opinion. And we got Dole Whip scent just wafting through the air. It really doesn't get much better than that. It just feels like summer when you're out there. It's fantastic.
It's a little tropical danger out there.
It's great. We love the little pre-show area with all my totem pole friends and that big-ass tree.
I appear before you as a mighty tree.
Tangaroa.
Oh, that's right. He is the father of all gods and goddesses.
That's
right?
correct. And they all have their little spiels and sound effects and music loops. It's very relaxing. In fact, these might get me more nostalgic than the show itself, because this is often where we were waiting with all my family and we would be having, we would be goofing around and talking. And then in the background, you'd hear dun 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 dun.
Aloha. Wahine me kioni mana. I am Koro.
And then they have the person say who they are. The beginning sounds for Maui is really good.
Oh yeah, and he's got that little clock.
Yeah.
Right?
Click, clock, click, clock.
My name is Maui. Natives call me the Mighty One. I tamed the playful sun and gave my people time.
It just really brings me back to being a kid and sitting in this area. But as an adult, I will say the exchange that cracks me up is between Ngende, he's the dude that's balancing on his head.
Yes.
And Pele, the fire goddess. It really is funny. I don't know if you've actually listened to what they say to each other.
Well, they're kind of shit talking each other.
They
right?
are, dude. Ngende says, quote,
Legends say I'm balancing the earth, but sad to say, I'm just hanging on.
Me too, Ngende. And then Pele, the fire goddess, says, I'm the one who's really sad.
When I smile, it comes out mad.
It's just kind of funny to see these two tiki goddesses or gods try to out-trauma each other.
Yeah. You think your shit's hard?
It's very 2024. Side note on Tangaroa, I mentioned this before. He's fucking Thurl Ravenscroft again. I actually thought it was James Earl Jones. The last time I was there, I never thought about who's voicing this tree. And I was like, dude, is this tree Darth Vader? And then I looked it up and Thurl Ravenscroft. Love the little drum loop that happens right before the doors open. It lets everyone know the show is about to start. It's really good. It's like a dun, 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 dun. And then when I'm walking by this attraction sometimes into Adventureland, I'm sometimes tempted to be like, oh, they're about to open the doors.
Yeah, and back when it was popular, it'd be like, hey,
Yeah.
you better be ready.
Get that Dole Whip, get in here. Next good, I just wrote the birds are hilarious. These guys are really funny. All the lines of dialogue they have, I'm not going to go through a lot of them, but there are some that are my favorite. This one isn't even really a joke. I just like that Michael calls Pierre a rascal.
Pierre, you rascal, you. Let's put on the show.
I should start every episode of For Your Amusement with, Byron, you rascal, let's put on the show. It's real good. Some of these, I don't even know I wrote them down. I just like the way they sound. I think they just are so ingrained in my brain from like being a kid. Like, I like when I think it's Fritz who says this. My goodness, you're all staring at us. We better start the show rolling.
My goodness, you're all staring at us. We better start the show rolling.
Yep, that's it, Mike.
You're staring at us. Also, Jose, I think he's my favorite of the four. He just has the most iconic lines.
He's like the leader.
Could you imagine?
And he's got the best burns.
He's got the best burns, and he has some like real nasty quotes. Could you imagine if your alarm clock every day was "Ole, ole, it's showtime"? It's so good. Every day I would be happy.
From the get-go, just making the joke about my siestas are getting shorter and shorter.
Oh, dude, it's so good.
Oh, buenos dias, señorita. My siestas are getting shorter and shorter.
Yeah, because like that's the first thing he says. My siesta's getting shorter and shorter.
Which is the best way to bring them all to life.
It's great. The song obviously is a fucking banger. It's so good. It's a classic song. I actually wonder, is this one of the most famous songs in the world?
Oh gosh, I don't know about the world.
Think about how many people have gone to a Disney park.
Yeah, think about how many don't go to the Tiki Room.
That's true. That's true. You don't think if I walked around and started humming the Tiki Room, there wouldn't be at least 2 people in the room that would go start humming it with me?
Yeah, everyone that listens to this podcast.
That's true. And we're all a bunch of weirdos. As a Mexican man, I never thought I'd see our sense of humor represented in a Disney show from 1963. But as you said, Jose does have the best burns.
Oh my gosh!
Here's my favorite one.
I know it's so good. It's when the Irishman Michael starts.
Michael goes, "I sing so beautiful. I should sing so low." To which Jose replies, "See, so low that we can't hear you."
I sing so beautiful, I should sing solo.
Sing so low we can't hear you.
That's straight from the backyard, baby. I like that.
That was one of the ones that did not register when I was younger, and I was like, "Holy crap!"
It's
That is
incredible,
such
dude.
A clever
It's
bird.
really good. Also, these birds are just swaggy. There's a part in the main song. I think the actual lyric is like, "We've been a hit, and we know you adore us. So come on and join us in another chorus."
We've been a hit, and we know you adore us, so come on and join us in another chorus.
I've never been that confident in my life.
Just land fire.
Yeah. And it really is thrilling to see this room come to life for the first time. Like I'm saying, if you
It's magical. It really is magical. And like one of the goods I put, I feel like I'm on vacation.
It's incredible. Like I get excited when the Rainforest Cafe comes to life. If I was eating like some chicken tendies and this room came to life, that's 10 times as exciting to me, if not more so. What else do we have here? The Enchanted Fountain, mesmerizing. I really like it. It relaxes me. The show just relaxes me.
I love when they reveal the Enchanted Fountain. Like Jose's intro to it.
It's so good.
It just cracks me
It's
up.
really good.
We present the Enchanted Fountain.
And you see like the fountain kind of like raise up toward the ceiling. It's so appeasing the way it's lit.
It's great. Pierre introduces the girls from the Glee Club like a fucking weirdo. He goes, "There's Colette. Oh, Colette. Suzette. Hello, mommy. Gigi. Oh, hello, Mimi. Gigi. FIFA. Hee. Oh, Fifi." And then I never noticed this until like actually rewatching this, but really low under him saying those girls' names, Jose says something. He goes, "I wonder what happened to Rosita." Jose, you dog. You're a dog, man. Unbelievable. Let's All Sing Like the Birdies Sing is a very silly song. I love it. My wife did not love that song. She turned to me at this point because somehow she had not seen the Tiki Room or had not seen it since she was a kid. And at this portion of the show, and this would suggest she wasn't having a great time for most of the show, she turned to me and she was just like, "What the fuck are we doing?" And I get it. I honestly get it. But Bing Crosby and Louis Armstrong impressions, really funny.
Let's all sing like the birds sing.
This attraction, I want to give credit to it because it really had a great sense of humor, not only back then, but for today's too. For today's standards, the wordplay, there's references that are amazing back then. The jokes, everything. It's just a well-executed, very, very fun show. It's a show about having a good time.
I will say the "Let's All Sing Like the Birdies Sing" segment when all the girly birds drop down. I do like that base. It's like, it's not a chandelier, right? But it's like a chandelier shaped thing that's like tiki-fied. I just think it's cool that they have all these moving like little set pieces that you don't see to start the show.
Yeah.
And then they kind of come to life and you're like, wow, there's like a lot more than I thought going on here.
Well, the room is perfectly alive, honestly, and it's perfectly in theme. Nothing feels out of place or pushed. It's just well executed. Also, from that song, "Let's All Sing Like the Birdies Sing." I've never been in there when people actually sing along to it, because there's a part in the song that actually kind of like rolls into it, and it's really like pleasurable to hear. It's like, "Take your time from the birds, now you all know the words. Tweet. Tweet, tweet." I've never been in a room where everyone sings it. I would love to be there.
Well, you could tell because Jose, before the line starts, is like telling you the line.
Yeah.
Like trying to feed it to you.
It's good.
Like really quick before they sing it.
It's good.
Because he's like, I know they're never going to.
He's a funny guy, Jose. I would grab a beer with Jose. Of course, his beer would be very tiny, but I'd grab a cold one with him. Love the Tiki drummers. I've always loved these guys. Ever since I was a little kid, these guys have always captured my imagination. I thought they were really cool. There's like a weird little whistle that's happening, like the whoa. I don't even know how to describe it, but and I also adore the totem pole guys. You know, their eyes
move.
Their eyes are going crazy and they're just chanting.
They're just the right amount of scary.
They're the right amount of scary. That's what it is. Like, I think when you're a kid, you want something that feels a little dangerous, but you don't want it to scare you. And this is the perfect, like, they turned the lever all the way up on the danger scale to just the right amount where it wouldn't tip over into I am now scared.
Because when I see them, it connects me to the first time I remember experiencing the attraction.
Me too. Exactly it. It's exactly it for me. This all ascends into the thunderstorm, which is amazing. Thunderstorm effect still to this day.
Yeah, because it's like hitting a fever pitch because they're
it's so
going
good.
crazy with the drum banging.
Yeah,
it's it's getting rowdy up in this tiki room.
And there's there's that chorus in the background going,
yeah, it hits this beat, it gets super loud, it hits this climax, and then boom, the gods get pissed off.
The gods have been angered by all the celebrating.
I love the rain. It does create a little bit, just that right amount of danger.
Yeah, it's
like
great.
What's gonna happen?
Which, by the way, they took that line, the gods have been angered by all the celebrating, and used it in my favorite fireworks show, which is Remember Dreams Come True.
That slaps.
And they play it right before the fire explosion from Indiana Jones, and it's a perfect little, just like to cut that line.
Nice little tip of the cap.
The wrap-up song, really good. But I especially love when they throw to, like, because it goes, dut, 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 dut. And then they go through to the tikis and they go, and the tikis take their drums, and then it goes, dun, 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 and it's just like fucking amazing. I love it.
Just like dishing out solos.
It's great. And then overall, overall just like good for the show. I just love that they constantly refer to themselves as birdies. Isn't that nice? We're all little birdies. It's so good. Anyways, those are all my goods. Do you have anything to add, or should we just move to the bad?
I'll add that maybe I'm just extremely lucky, but I have never experienced this show in my life in B mode.
Neither have I.
It's for starting in 1960. They've
reliable.
Kept it really well. Maybe it's not the most advanced thing at this point, but there are a lot of show elements. A lot of stuff has to work together, and it always works. It's always fluid. It's
great.
Do you like the exit? Do you like the exit joke? Or is that in your bad?
Yeah, the exit is, I don't have it as my bad.
They send you off with hi ho. Before that, which I guess we could bring into the bads now.
Yeah.
And then we could rewind. But at the end of the show, like they basically, like he says something to the tune of like, oh, like stand up and applaud. Like, or like, you know,
or we have a magic
for the
trick
show.
or something.
Now while you're standing, we're going to show you the magic trick. We're going to make you all disappear.
Yeah.
And then the doors open and they send you off with their own version of like,
which, by the way,
hi-ho.
the Joker definitely stole that from the Tiki Room. He made that pencil disappear, but he stole that from the birds.
True.
He needs to credit them.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all ever seen the Tiki Room? My father saw the Tiki Room. Anyways, I have to say, I'm just gonna say it. The four main birds. Look, the show was made in 1963. The accents are goofy.
They're very goofy.
They're very goofy. Some might even say offensive. But you know, I will say, and I can't speak for all Mexicans on earth, but I enjoy Jose. He makes me laugh. He does say really goofy things, like when the rainstorm starts and he's like, "Ooh, I think someone left their shower running." It's ridiculous. I don't know.
I don't know if that's how Irishmen sound.
No, I don't know if this is how any folks really sound. But
I sing so beautiful. Maybe got the I.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. I mean, it just has to be acknowledged. It's a show from the 60s. Look, it is what it is. I don't think it's overtly offensive, but, you know, I get it if it's a bad for somebody.
Yeah. And I do believe that was during a period of time where they were genuinely trying to get guests exposed to different cultures and different places of the world and represent them.
Yeah, maybe the intention was that. Either way, I actually don't like how the show starts. They do that thing that I usually really don't like at live shows, when it's a version of this, like, how's everybody doing tonight? And then everyone goes, woo, and they're like, come on, how's everybody doing tonight? And they make you cheer even louder. I don't like that. Like, it just, I don't like you auditing my cheer level.
I didn't get that last time. What a relief.
Well, here it's like they have you say aloha, and they're like, come on, I didn't hear you.
Oh,
and then they
gosh,
go, aloha.
that's the worst.
It's the worst. And I don't like it in any show except for
sympathy participation.
Waterworld. That's the only time where I think it works. And you know why?
I still think
it works in Waterworld, because you could tell the folks that are trying to get you to cheer in Waterworld are having a good time.
That is true. And it is like a fun form of competition.
Yeah. They do it right there. It's the only time I've seen it done well. Anyways, that's just across the board. The luau portion, it's a bit slow. I like it, but I know a lot of folks are snoozing during that point. A lot of people just come into this room to sleep, to take a nap in air conditioning.
Yeah, that's why they make that. That's what I had in my pads.
Yeah,
I like the padded seats, but the backrest is not that high, and I think they do that so that you don't try and take a snoozer and get too comfortable.
It's good, but then
you have
I will
to stay
say
upright.
The luau portion does pick up in tempo when they start to go into the Hawaiian war chant.
Oh yeah,
when it go, it's really good. We can play a little bit. The pacing a little bit slow for the modern audience. I'll admit that. And I wonder if I didn't have so much nostalgia caked onto this that maybe I would think that more so. And then my last bad is this should be a dinner show. Make it happen. Make it happen. Make the Walt's original vision. And that's the thing. I feel like a lot of times when Disney purists, and I don't even know, I wouldn't consider myself a purist. I'm pretty open to changing things if it makes them better. But even the purists would agree. This is one of those loopholes where you could change it into that, and the argument, it was the original vision.
Yeah.
So
I could say also for people that aren't super familiar with the ride, sorry, not the ride, the show.
It is a ride though.
The birds are kind of small, so if you hear them talking, it might be hard sometimes to track who's saying what.
That's true.
Sometimes it's hard to understand what they're even saying at all unless you've experienced it numerous times, but it does create an incentive to experience it numerous times and get to know its greatness deeper.
Yeah, sometimes you don't hear, what happened to Rosita?
Yeah, I sure as hell
unbelievable, dude. I can't believe that guy. He's such a little, he's a little dog. All right, let's move on to the world-class tests. But before we do that, let's once again thank our sponsors. And we are back. It's time for the world-class tests. This is a rubric of 10 tests painstakingly devised by Byron and myself to determine if an attraction is world-class. To receive the highly coveted world-class pass, the attraction must pass 7 out of 10 tests. A score of 6 out of 10 leaves the attraction up for debate for world-class pass standing, and anything lower than 6 out of 10 is an automatic fail. Starting with test number 1, the average tourist test. Would the average tourist have a hard time getting on this ride? Is there a long wait? Is there a complicated queue system? I feel like you'd have a hard time not getting on this ride. You pretty much always could just walk in.
Yep, it's the first thing you see when you enter Adventureland. It's never has a wait.
I will say
the only wait that you're waiting is if just for the show ahead of you to end.
That's true, and I will say they don't do a great job of advertising what's going on. Like if you walk through the little turnstiles, especially in the Disneyland version, you could be in there kind of going like, where's the ride? Like, how do I get in here? It's not very clear you're in a waiting room for the show to open. So
you know what the mentality there is, though? I learned this on a walking tour once in Europe.
What?
They'd warn us, oh, if there's like a greeter outside trying to like show you the menu and stuff like that and usher you in, it's most likely not a good restaurant because the good restaurants don't need it. I think that's what their mentality is with this.
That makes sense.
Like if you know, you come in here, you find it, you have a good experience.
Well, either way, I think that's a pass.
It's a pass for me. It's pretty easy.
Test number 2, the Leslie stall test. Would you be willing to wait 60 minutes for this attraction if you've already been on it at least once? Or if everything in the park was 60 minutes, would you wait for this?
I would most certainly not. You know you wouldn't either. You're going to wait 60 for this? You're not going to wait 60 for this? You fucking, are you fucking kidding?
No, I'm not kidding. I would not wait 60 minutes. But I think about it. It depends. If this was a dinner show, I'd wait.
No.
I don't know.
And I mean, as far as shows go, there are much longer shows out there.
No, you're right. It's a fail.
So 60
in my heart of hearts, I would not wait 60 minutes for this as much as I do love it. Test number 3, the smartphone test. Does the queue of this ride have enough to keep you off of your phone? I think so.
Look, one hand's holding the Dole Whip. The other hand's holding the spoon. It's impossible.
And also, you have a pre-show that lasts the entirety of the queue.
With backstories of these gods and goddesses that you will not be able to read all of or...
No.
Every time I go, I actually usually get something new out of all the details out there. The Disney World version, this is where it kind of differs a bit. And I would still pass the Disney World version because they have like the 2 toucans outside that tell you that like it has like a waterfall and then
2
like
toucans can sing better than 1 toucan can.
There it is. That's right. That's a pun from the actual show.
It is.
when they have like this neat little waterfall and this like cylindrical shaped door slides open and it reveals the two birds. And like they tell you a story of how the Tiki Room came to be and how it got situated there. So there's enough going on combined with how little you're actually going to wait for this experience. But the Disneyland version, definitely better.
No, for sure. And also, once the show opens the door and let's say you missed it by it just closed on you, the entirety of that time to when the show starts, for the most part, there is a pre-show entertainment, whether you're reading it or they start to come to life. Yeah, so this is a pass for me.
And they only have to keep your attention realistically for a few minutes, so.
Yeah. It's a pass. And you get to sit down. One of the most pleasurable line experiences you could possibly have.
It's great.
Moving on, that's 2 for 3. Test number 4, the Tony Stark test. How innovative is this attraction? Does it push theme park tech forward? Oh yeah, baby. Yes, it does. It's the first ride to ever use audio animatronics. I don't know if you could have this has got to be up there in the strongest arguments you could have.
It's extremely innovative. And on top of it, they still look great.
They do look great, and they perform great. They remastered it, I think, in like 2018 or 2019.
There were some refurbs along the way.
I know they definitely by the time the 60th happened, but they did remaster the audio and made the animatronics a little better. So no, it's this is, you could point it to this as one of the marquee attractions to start rides and animatronics as we know them.
An absolute game changer. Yeah. It's a pass.
Moving on to test number 5, the Hollywood test. Can this attraction be adapted for the silver screen? Does it have a comprehensible story? Now, here we go. This does have a story.
It does, in a way. It could.
I would watch a Tiki Room movie.
There is a door. The characters are so exciting. It does actually follow a story, even if it's very, very, very thin.
Yeah. I mean, it's a show. It's like it was made to be a dinner show, so it has a story. So it's not like a complicated story. It's just birds singing to you and bringing on you.
Then angering the gods.
Angering the gods. And
there's runway to turn it into something lighthearted, fun, adventurous. Jose, super fun character. All the 4 main birds, super fun kid. There's opportunities here. I could see it. Rosita, his side piece. Maybe she gets a plot.
The spirit of this test is basically, is there a story and is there enough to draw from the source material to make it into a film, essentially? And for example, Pirates is a good example. Pirates takes you through a world. It built the world. There's little vignettes. I would say there is somewhat of a story there, and that you're seeing all these things, but they're all kind of just vignettes tied together that are tied together by this world. I think the Tiki Room establishes a world pretty well, and there is a story.
Okay, like I've got the runway right here. Okay, let's imagine. Let's say you are starring in a film, Ryan, and your character is going back to his family's roots, his homeland, because he's accepting this inheritance from some relative that owned this Tiki Room out in like the middle of like Polynesia or something of that sort.
Yeah, I can see.
You walk in there, you're like, you're at a dead end job, you're exhausted, and you're just going to do your obligatory visit to this place you inherited, and all of a sudden, boom, like the Tiki Room comes to life. What the fuck are these birds? They're talking to me. What's going on?
Yeah.
And then we go.
No, let him cook. Let him cook.
There it is.
That's good.
So
that's good. Let Matt Rion behind he looks skeptical.
Well, okay. So does it have to be a good movie?
I don't think it has to be a good movie. I do think that's a good movie. That sounds like a good movie that he just said.
They did that with Tomorrowland, and it did not work.
No, yeah, exactly. But I mean, Tomorrowland's source material isn't as strong as this.
I know. I think the runway is there. There is a movie that can exist.
Yeah. And I would cast.
They set the stage
Antonio
very
Banderas.
well in this experience that I.
You know what? I changed my answer. I would cast George Lopez to be in this. If George Lopez walked into an Enchanted Tiki Room,
I think George Lopez is getting cooked right now.
No, why?
Mario Lopez. Mario Lopez.
No. Who would I cast in this? Who would be a good? John Leguizamo. He walks into.
That would be a good one.
He walks into like an old Tiki Room, like he's going back home. Like you said, he'd be perfect in that.
Yeah,
I'd see that.
Benicio del Toro's the villain, or Javier Bardem.
Ooh, Javier Bardem. No, Javier Bardem is Jose.
He does the voice of Jose.
He goes, Lisa Nakaib. Lisa Nakaib.
Call it.
Call it. No country for old men humor for you there, for all you film heads who listen to this podcast.
Rosita, stay inside.
Yeah. He checks his shoe after he leaves the Tiki Room to see if there's blood on it.
There wasn't a screenplay written for a Tiki movie.
I don't see how the Tiki Room...
It did not happen.
The Tiki Room would be a fun movie.
Yeah, but it's in the conversation.
Anyways, I think it's a pass. You could scream at me if you want. You could say, Ryan, you're a shoehorner. Yeah, whatever. I like shoehorns sometimes. They're comfortable for my feet when I put them in shoes. But I don't think this is a shoehorn. I honestly think this is in the spirit of the test. There is a comprehensible story, and there's enough source material and world building here to adapt it into a film.
And our ideas are out there now in the ethernet, across the internet. So if you're an executive at Disney,
you could take it as long as you cast
you got to give us a call. Yeah.
You don't have to cast me as the lead. Just cast me as one of the birds or maybe one of the flowers or something like that. Moving on. Test number 6. We're at 4 for 5 right now. We're fucking flying. The Simpson test. How likely is this to be replaced with something new? They'll never replace it.
You don't think so?
They can't. There's no way they can. It's one of those early classic attractions. It's not a day one attraction, but it is old school Walt Disneyland. Any attraction that still has survived to this day that has Walt's literal fingerprints on it, they'd be hard pressed to replace it, at least in Disneyland.
Yes. Easier.
There would be an uproar.
Easier pass for Disneyland. It's still hard in Disney World because, once again, how much space is this really taking up?
It's not taking up that much space.
On top of that, Adventureland, especially at Disneyland, you have the benefit of Indiana Jones e-ticket, Jungle Cruise, still very popular classic attraction.
Yeah.
You don't need another big e-ticket there to carry the weight. Disney World, you still got Pirates.
No. And especially when they convert it into a dinner show, like they're going to listen to me and do that, it'll definitely never leave.
Yeah, and once again, I mean, they're slinging all that Dole Whip. They recently, what was it, like probably like shortly after 2015 or something like that, maybe 2017, they built that Tropical Hideaway. They like took down that Aladdin Oasis.
Which is in the lyrics to the Tiki Room. Welcome to our Tropical Hideaway.
That's right. That's the reference. And then, which you could get somewhat tasty bao buns there. They're all right.
That's another thing. They built a kind of ancillary restaurant that is in the world of this.
Yeah. It transitions it over to Jungle Cruise. It's like this good little median. They have little like sea tie-ins. So I don't see if they're going to bulldoze Tiki Room, I think they would bulldoze Tropical Hideaway with it, which was done too recently to make any sort of sense. And it would kind of, I don't know. I think it would kind of fuck over the aesthetic to the Jungle Cruise as well. So I think this isn't going anywhere. This is a pass.
I think it's a pass too.
Pass.
I'd be shocked. I'd truly be shocked. And that's crazy that I would be shocked considering how little people go to this thing.
That is the one caveat is if you're looking at a spreadsheet and you're only getting X amount of butts and seats.
Yeah.
At what point is something else more beneficial?
I mean, there are parts of Disneyland, and depending on who you ask, rightfully so or wrongfully so, that are treated as museum pieces almost.
Yeah.
And this feels like one of them.
Yeah, I guess.
They're preserved in Walt's memory, and they will never be taken out because of that. Granted, I know we're seeing what's happening with Lincoln right now, and they might be, the rumor is that might be going away, and it might be a Walt animatronic. That's the rumor, at least. But I don't know. This feels like classic Walt Disneyland, just like the railroad, just like actually, I'm trying to think what's left.
It's a functioning piece of history.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pass.
Okay, moving on. Test number 7, the signature moment test.
What does that put us at, by the way?
That is 5 for 6.
Okay.
Can this ride hold its own without its signature moment? Is it a one-trick pony? It's pretty much just bird singing the entire time. Yeah.
Once again, this becomes the argument of like, say, is the signature moment and then signature feature. However,
there's like the thunderstorm. There's like the enchanted fountain, but really, it all kind of globs together. And if you don't like birds singing,
if the birds don't sing words, and you just have the flowers croon. It's not going to be enough. It's not a tiki.
It's not going to be enough. It's a one note show for the most part in terms of what it's presenting. Yeah, there is like tonal shifts in the songs they're singing, but if you're not a fan of animatronic singing for 15 minutes, you're going to be having a bad time.
Yeah. And I will say, if you were to find a different signature moment, like let's say like the storm scene, if they took that out, I'd have way less of an incentive to actually go in there. I'm not gonna lie.
That's a fail.
I think it needs some sort of like arc or some like climax to it, and it does have that currently. So yeah, it's a fail.
It's a fail. Let's move on to the last 3 tests, but before we find out the fate of this ride, let's once again thank our sponsors. And we are back. Let's figure it out. Last 3 tests, here we go. The premature detraculation test. Does this ride finish too soon? There are a lot of people who would argue it doesn't finish soon enough because they're bored out of their minds. But I think in the spirit of the test, it does not finish too soon. It gives
Haven't we done something that was too long? And
have we ever done that? I don't think we have.
There was one that was like, is it too long?
Probably Living with the Land.
Yeah, probably that. But hey.
But I guess if you're just using the letter of the law.
You're trying to, the whole point of the test was like, are you getting your money's worth?
Yeah.
Are you waiting 3 hours and you're getting on a ride that's like 30 seconds or something like that, which, there are rides out there that are like that.
You will on average.
Not that extreme, but you know what I mean.
You will on average wait less than the experience that you're getting.
Yes. And even the wait, you're getting an experience out there.
And if this thing was over 15 minutes long, I'd start to feel like, okay, it's a little too much. But since it sits in between that, like 12 to 15 minutes, I feel like it's a proper length.
I can't remember which version of it in Magic Kingdom, whether it was Tropical Serenade or if it was now as it stands. They did cut out one of the songs. I think it was the Luau song.
I have heard. I think all the versions got a little shorter.
They got a little shorter because they realized it was just a little too long. Mm-hmm. And I think that this is not looking good. But I mean, this is like apparently, and I don't know if this is true. What spurred that is they noticed people were getting up and leaving the show.
I've heard that as well.
Which is like, we got to cut some of these songs. So, it's almost too many songs, but I think as it stands now, it's a sufficient amount. Maybe still too much for some people, but definitely you're not walking out going like, man, they really ripped me off here.
Yeah, I think as soon as that thought crosses your mind of, all right, I think I'm like good to wrap it up, they are wrapping it up.
That's why it would be a good dinner show, because like during like the kind of more like slow parts of the show, it's like, oh, okay, they're doing that part. Maybe I'll dig into some of this, some of this Kahlua pork over here or something like that,
Look. The more you keep beating me over the head with this dinner show idea, the more I kind of think it's real. Like,
so then I'm accomplishing my goal.
If you are not getting enough butts in the seats, you most certainly will get enough butts in the seats and make a lot more money as a company if you are turning it into a dinner show. And you still probably could share that kitchen space.
Or,
with,
even the like, if you don't want to charge people to see this show, what if you just had seating arrangements in there, like where you could actually eat and you could like bring food from the outside and sit like food court style inside.
Look, the possibility.
Now that's a good idea. Like maybe that's the best version. Okay. I took the whole episode to maybe get to like the best version.
Sure. Okay. Well, it's a pass in terms of premature detraculation.
Sure. Moving on. That's 6 for 8. It's in debate land.
Oh my gosh.
The exit hall test. Do you see people be physically excited getting off of this ride? Do they have that bounce after the ride? I could say this with a resounding no.
It's not a shtick.
Most people, I've seen people, you have to wake them up.
Yeah.
Because they are asleep.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also because it's so cozy.
It's cozy. It's a refresher. That's the purpose. It's not to get you super excited into the rest of your day. It's to recharge those batteries a little bit and kind of slow things down a little bit.
I've heard people say they fall asleep to this podcast, and I don't take that as I don't take offense to that.
No, not at all.
It's relaxing.
That's flattering.
I take that as a flattery. And if you're saying it to me as an insult, just know I'm taking it as a compliment. I'm judoing you. I'm taking your
You know how many theme park YouTube videos I fall asleep to?
Well, you and I we fall asleep to theme park videos all the time.
That's true.
Not together. I mean, sometimes actually we're now on the couch next to each other. We may or may not be snuggling. I don't know. Moving on to test number 10, the fine wine test. This, by the way, we need to pass this one if it's going to be world-class pass for sure. Has this show aged well? Has your opinion of the attraction appreciated or depreciated since your first experience? Or if it's a new ride, do you believe it will age well?
This is tough for me.
I'm going to be very honest here. It's going to be a fail for me. It's going to be a fail. I think it was spectacular when it came out in 1963. Like, have to be charged extra spectacular. Just because it introduced new tech, it broke ground. But as time has gone on, because it was so groundbreaking and so classic, they were unable to change it in any significant way to make it more suitable for a modern audience. And therefore, the pacing does not suit a modern audience as well as it should. I think by that metric, even though it's still a classic, it still has a lot of good things about it, and it has all its history attached. I think a modern audience today will not enjoy it as much as an audience in 1963, and therefore, I do think it's a fail.
Okay, so on one hand, as a piece of history, I think it has appreciated. But to your point, and also, I mean, just read the room, right? Or like read the exterior of that. But like when you first started experiencing
There's
that,
nobody in it.
Well, yeah, look at the room or just the outside of it.
Not for long though.
It used to be packed with people and you wouldn't even get in sometimes the first time they opened the door. You have to wait for the next show.
Yeah.
Whereas now, even on the most crowded days, you could usually just walk in there without an issue. I think that kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah.
However, I do believe there are other attractions we have done in the past, such as like Carousel of Progress.
No, but
actually, did we fail it on Carousel of Progress?
I can't recall, but actually that one still does draw more of a crowd than Tiki Room, I have to say.
Does it?
It does.
That theater is always pretty empty when I go.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that. Either way, I think that one's subject to get an appeal, and perhaps
maybe we could appeal it
in a court-based show that will never happen ever.
Yeah, maybe that may.
This isn't a pass for me.
I don't think it's a pass. I'm okay with that. I will say that even my memories of being a kid in the 90s, even when I was a wee boy, I recall that waiting area being pretty packed. And I remember the show itself being packed.
Yeah. As a theme park sicko, there's an appreciation that grows within me. But like, if I'm going to be objective about this, I'm not like telling people go with, hey, like we got to do that Tiki
in good conscience. I can't do it. I will say though, I would like to organize some sort of event where everyone goes to Disneyland on the same day and we just watch the Tiki Room. I want to see it in its full glory.
Fill those seats. Let's fill them all up.
Yeah. Well, I will all wear shirts that say "Make this a dinner show."
We'll sneak in some TV trays.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll bring in our tropical hideaway food. And just be like, hey, we're the beta testers.
Now, Byron, that's a fail. That leaves it at 6 for 10. We are now in debate land, and this is where it gets real sticky. And not just because you have Dole Whip in the bottom of your sneakers.
I was going to say.
It is very tough. Would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first, or whether or not you think this is a world-class attraction? I got to admit, I almost wish I would have failed one of the other tests or passed one of the other tests just so I could avoid this discussion, because this is my worst nightmare, because it's going to really call into question my bias. Do you think this is a world-class attraction? Byron, you have the floor. Why or why not?
Okay. I believe it was a world-class attraction. I don't think it is currently a world-class attraction. Maybe in my heart, but once again, being objective, I think it's a very beautiful piece of history. There's a lot I admire from it.
Yeah.
There's a lot I can still take away from it. There are new details I'll still pick up on. But in terms of like the bigger picture, as more rides keep coming out, how often we overlook this experience.
Yeah.
For any general park guests, like the proof is in the pudding. Even on the most crowded days, you're not seeing the seats beyond like half capacity most of the time. I can't say this is a world-class attraction. It was a world-class attraction. It still brings value to people's day. It's an incredible supplementary attraction. And for theme park fans that are willing to go down the rabbit hole and just keep building on their layers of appreciation for Imagineering or just theme park design and experience as a whole, you'll enjoy it. But yeah, in general, it's not a world-class attraction.
I think you can make an argument that there would not be a lot of theme park. I don't think you can make the argument that animatronics would be what they are today had they not thought of the tech for this ride. In fact, I wonder if that's like some sort of nexus point in time where things would have just been different. I think it's still an incredible show. The songs are classics. I think the animatronics are still very impressive. And I think some of the effects still hold up. I agree that it definitely was a world-class attraction. Oh my God, this is so tough. I also know that if I try to pass it, it's going to go to Matt Rial and he's just going to fail it. Because
I haven't been there, so I can't.
Oh shit. Then we can't have it be a...
I mean, you could still fight for it. You could try and sway me otherwise.
No, I honestly...
I've just reached a point in this show where I could shamelessly like love an attraction and still say, hey, it's not world class.
I think if my definition of world class is like, you have to travel to this park to see this ride, I don't think anyone should do that.
Or if someone left Disneyland, you're like, hey, what do you think of the Tiki Room? They're like, I didn't do it. You're like, what? You didn't do the Tiki Room? Are you kidding me?
That's true.
Why did you even buy your ticket?
All right. I agree. It's not a world-class attraction today, but it was a world-class attraction, and that should count for something. I think.
It could be a world-class dining experience.
Now, you make this a dining show. Now, all of a sudden, now we're cooking.
I love how off board I was to start this show, and now I've been reeled in.
Yeah, and look, I will admit, maybe you can make an argument that the Hollywood test was a shoehorn job. I actually think it did pass that legitimately, but for those who didn't think it, I will at least give the nod to be like, you know what? While I passed it there, at the end, I cannot push this one over the finish line in good conscience, because I do think it would be foolhardy to be like, you need to do the Tiki Room when you go to Disneyland. Yeah. I think you should, but you don't need to.
And something we never discuss, I think sometimes the guests themselves play a role in whether or not an attraction could be world class.
That's true.
I think people going into it very excited, embracing what they're going to take in, going into a packed house, people participating just like genuinely, it elevates that experience.
But just the idea that you have to have this like grassroots movement of save the Tiki Room, be excited.
See, that wouldn't be genuine.
I'm saying though, like you would never be like, we need to get more people excited to go on Indiana Jones. We need to get more people excited to go on Space Mountain. Like that's never going to happen.
You star in this Tiki Room movie. It gets a newfound appreciation. It turns into a dinner show.
Hey, look, I don't hate the sound of that.
Byron literally just said the world-class attraction was in you all along.
Well, that does it. It is not a world-class attraction. It does finish with a score of 6 out of 10, which I think is fair.
Very respectable.
A ride that opened in 1963, still getting 6 out of 10, I think that's very respectable. And we salute you, Tiki Room, and especially you, Jose. I hope you find Rosita. Which could be a beautiful love story. Maybe it's like a West Side Story thing, and it's not like Jose being a dog. Anyways, that does it for this episode of For Your Amusement. Make sure you follow the pod at FYA Pod across all socials. You can follow Byron Marin. That's him. Byron, he's the co-host. He could follow him on socials at Byron A. Marin across all socials. I'm at Ryan Bergara and at Ryan S. Bergara over on Twix. Like and subscribe to the podcast if you're listening, and like and subscribe if you're watching over at youtube.com/watcherpodcast. And also, if you're listening, rate the podcast 5 stars. It helps us keep making the show. But until next time, we'll see you on the next ride, I suppose. Bye-bye.